Welcome, you fabulous fossilized fop doodle. Fop doodle. Anyway. Welcome to Seared, Stories from the Stove podcast. My name is Paul Silva. Always has been, always will be, as far as I know, until I'm 6 feet under. Then you can call me anything you want, except late for dinner. That's sound like a boomer. Okay, anyway. I have the answer to a question that I was asked many times. And I still see it kind of, floating around Reddit now and then. I don't really go on Reddit, but anyway. And the question is this. What is the difference between a chef and a cook? It's not a hard question, and I feel definitely qualified to answer that one. So I'm going to go with it. Now, of course, I'm going to answer the question, and I'm going to kind of take you down a little path. I'm going to take you down a little path where I'm going to maybe introduce a different approach. Why, like the mindset part of cook and chef and how that can affect your life, how you can use that to recognize maybe where you might be stuck. You see, we went from here and we're going there. That's where I'm going to take you. So strap in, Sally. We're going to go somewhere. So the easy answer to that question is that all chefs are cooks, but not all cooks are chefs. Now, they are used interchangeably a lot. And when I was coming up, when I was fairly new, I didn't want to be associated with cooks. I didn't want to say that I was a cook, but I didn't feel qualified to say I was a chef. And the reason I didn't want to say I was a cook is because back then, you see, when I got into the business, there wasn't Food Network or anything like that. Like, we were just a bunch of bridge trolls. Like, we were like just kept in the back quiet, where we should have been. There's no need for someone like me to be in front of people talking to them face to face. It would have been very wrong. And I would have gotten out of that job very quickly. This was a face for back of house. So, but I also didn't want to be associated with, what you see on TV, where in some diner and some guy's wearing this mustard oil stained apron. He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth that hasn't been ashed since, Kennedy was in office and just grimy and I thought that's what people would think of when they thought of cooks. And so I didn't, I was young and egoic and I had ideas and all that stuff. And so I didn't want to be associated with that, but I had to say cook. I had to say something. But over the years, the definition for me has been refined a little bit. I want to share with you a few of the differences in the kitchen, in leadership and all that between the two. And then, like I said, I'm going to take you down a little offshoot, a little branch, and we're going to get into a little bit of mindset stuff. So a cook, to me, is someone that has a task. They're part of a team. And their job primarily is to focus on one area or one type of task. And they take directions from the chef, or sometimes they're called kitchen managers, depending on the place. But they take direction. They're the frontline worker. They're the bees, the worker bees, and they do the thing. And so whether that's a prep cook or they work on a station like entremetier, garde-manger, grill, whatever it is, their job, their role is to not only perform the tasks as directed, but to do it in a timely manner, in a way that is in line with health and safety regulations, and and just being part of the team. And so you can be part of 2 people on a team, or you can be part of a massive hotel brigade, but you have specific tasks and you are held to those tasks. You're cooking, obviously, but you're also prepping, you're cleaning the station, there's other things. Cooks just aren't cooking. I'd say cooking is sometimes less than 50% of what a cook does during the day, maybe even less. Because they are cleaning and tidying and organizing, doing prep lists. They're getting, depending on whatever else is going on. Sometimes they even have to go help serve. Sometimes whatever, depending on the place. That's a cook. Simple. We get it. Now, chef. What is a chef? The chef is like a general. And they run the whole brigade. Whether it's a team of 2 in a small mom and pop restaurant where 80 covers on a Saturday night is insane, and been there, done that. Or they could be the executive chef of a large hotel brigade or a cruise ship where there's dozens, if not hundreds, of cooks. The last place I worked, I had 140 cooks reporting to me and 2 levels of management. And I still wasn't the top dog. I was like one step removed. But I've done all of that. And the thing is with chefs is a lot of the skill sets are the same, but it's just on a different scale. And obviously someone that works in a small brigade, and here's a little story. I worked in a mom and pop place, several, and I was running a brigade of 2. One of them, me. Actually, and there was a dishwasher and a brunch cook. I had someone apply for a job who used to be the executive chef of a cruise. And I was reading the resume. I was like, oh my gosh, I should be working for him. But I understood, because you get to a point where the chef stuff gets too much. It's too heavy. It's too overwhelming. You get stressed out, burnt out, all that. And you just want to get back to your roots and just cook. You just want to go in, put your head down, have fun, cook, pump it out, and just go home. Not think about budgets and scheduling and all that. But it was really hard for me to hire this person because I just thought it was just too intimidating for me. But I understood now, or later on, why this person wanted to become just a cook. And I say just because I don't mean like to put down at all. Cooking that was my passion. That's what I love doing. Not so much now. That's why I'm not a chef anymore. But cooks, I mean, they're the engine. They're the you can't just have a bunch of chefs walking around with a clipboard. You need the cooks. Anyway, I totally forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, I was telling you what chefs do. And you'd think this would be easy for me. But it's not, and I'll tell you why, because I know it inside out. And so there's so many layers and nuances and all that. And you don't need to care about that. You don't know. You don't want to. You just want to know the basics. Give me the simple things, Paul. Just shut up. Kiss. Keep it simple, Silva. So that's what I'm going to do. Chefs, like I said earlier, are the generals. And so they are in charge of, amongst other things, menu creation, any sort of concepts of the menu, like whether it's cyclical, seasonal, etc. And because of that, they also have to make sure that they source out the products. So they're constantly in meetings and meeting with vendors and suppliers, etc. Standardized recipes. Some places do have that. We used to have last place I worked, we had a book, every menu with not only the recipes, but pictures. So we used to prepare them. Any sort of training for the staff, chefs in charge of. Any health and safety, of course, huge, very, very important. So they were in charge of making sure everyone had their certifications or whatever they needed to make sure that the place was safe and healthy. That's why it's called health and safety. Food cost, budgeting, planning, schedules, payroll, all that stuff. That's on the chef. Anything that goes wrong, it's the chef, right? Unions. If there's a unionized place, any sort of conflicts, any sort of write-ups, any disciplining, chef. So the chef is more than just, the head cook. They can be in some places what they call a working chef, someone who does all of that but is still on the line. And I did a lot of that. But then you have more executive chefs in the bigger places where they're not really on the line because they have so many other things going on. And add into that now you have social media and you have other things where the chef has to be now or going to events or doing, competition, whatever it is that you're representing their place of their operations. And on top of that, in larger spaces like hotels, cruises, etc., they also have to deal with other departments, security, maintenance, IT, payroll, etc., HR. And so they're dealing with all sorts of stuff. I know all that because I've done all that. And so I've had cooks who would look at me and they've said, and I know they've said, if you've said like, oh, you just walk around with your clipboard, you do nothing. I'm like, oh, really? Because that's okay. I understood because to them as cooks, they only measure output and, work as having a knife in your hand, cutting board down, head down, and just whacking away at some vegetables or carving up meat or whatever it is. And that's okay. I get that. I used to think the same because I didn't understand all the things that chefs did. And that's a lot. The key thing with chefs is that they're leaders, that they understand leadership. That is where I cut my teeth on all my leadership managing skills, was all through managing people in kitchens. As I used to say to my wife all the time, food is the easy part. The food is the easy part. It's the people part that was complicated, because you had to deal with people who are calling in sick, who had this issue, who all of a sudden, or maybe they got injured, or there's interpersonal, issues and drama, or whatever it is. They quit on the spot or whatever it is. Or there's some issues that are underlying, maybe more systematic in terms of maybe the work is too much for a small crew. Being shorthanded is like one of the biggest headaches chefs have. Trying to find the right people and trying to manage everything. That's why a lot of times the hours are so long. And you're battling the owner a lot of times to try to get like repaired equipment, new equipment, and all that. So there's a lot that goes on. But you have to have strong leadership skills, right? You can't be breaking down. You can't be freaking out. You can't be like getting involved in the drama. You can't be name calling and screaming. Now, I have done those things, but I was younger, and that was what was modeled in some ways. And then I started working with chefs who showed me that it doesn't have to be that way, who were calm, collected, who were grounded, who knew how to talk to people, who got to know people, who were personable, who were able to really get to the meat of the problem without, causing more of a whirlwind of drama. They were empathetic. They listened actively. They were not afraid to make decisions, strong decisions. They weren't afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. They weren't afraid to challenge others in a healthy way. They weren't afraid to, they didn't feel like they're going to look foolish all the time. They were strong leaders. And that's where I learned a lot of my leadership skills, was watching these chefs operate in a way that not only made the food better, that made the customer experience better, but also helped us to grow, to learn, to have fun, and to come into the work with a sense of ownership that didn't come with when someone's yelling and berating you and they're trying to put you down and they're just barking commands at you and not really connecting with you. And I'm not saying we have to sit in around a fire, drinking warm beer and singing, Wonderwall, because it's a tough biz. And it's kind of like a, what have you done for me lately type of thing. It's kind of like social media, but not at all. I don't know why I said that. So I always said like Twitter and all those is like, what have you done for me lately platforms? Because it's like, that was cool, but I need you to tweet something else. I need you to put another post up right now because I've already forgotten. Anyway, that has nothing to do with chefing. So leadership is key. Great chefs are great leaders. They're not always the best cooks. And that's the funny thing too. Often they can be. It's like sports, right? Like the captain isn't always the best player. Sometimes they are. And sometimes, most times, it's someone that has character, that brings something to the team that's more than just their stats. And so a lot of times I have no problem admitting that as a chef, I was almost always not the best cook. And I deferred to people who were much better cooks, who could cook things much nicer. And I would compliment them and like, show me how you did that. How do you make that? And I had no problems doing that because my talents and my skills and my zone of genius was in building people up and teaching them, training them to replace me. That's what I always said. My role is to make sure that you replace me and then I move on to greener pastures. And that's leadership. So what does this have to do with mindset? Okay, so I'm gonna shift. We're gonna transition here. Like we're, Wayne's World, you did that. All right. Anyway, I don't know if you can't see that if you're listening to. I just realized. Okay, never mind. If you look at it through a mindset lens, think of it like this: cooks, which obviously are needed, but we also understand that not all cooks necessarily want to be chefs because they see the pressure that would be under us. And they're like, that's not for me. I just want to stay in my lane and do my thing, which is fine. It's great. And there's some people that they're not cut out to be a chef. And that's okay too. We just all have our different paths. But for someone, I want to sort of almost translate the cook's mindset to someone, maybe you, who feels stuck, who wants to elevate but feels like they're in a rut. So just bear with me. This will make sense. So a chef or a cook, a cook will tend to follow recipes, right? Which is important. Absolutely. Consistency, right? Consistency. But for someone who wants to elevate and they feel stuck, that is not going to work, right? That's routines now. Now we're talking to routines and habits. Or maybe like it's something like maybe they're in a job that's unfulfilling, but they're like, man, I don't know. Like, I guess it is what it is. They're just stuck in doing things that aren't fulfilling. And that's that sort of, way of being, that stuckness. The other thing is being on autopilot, right? So it's someone that executes instructions. Again, for cooks, it's important that they execute instructions. But in your life, if you're struggling, are you just doing things automatically? Are you just having the same kind of conversations with the same people and the same people bitching about this and that? Are you just scrolling every night or every morning or just waiting for the same bus to do the same things? Like you're just living with blinders on. That's the shadow part, if you will, of executing orders, is that you're not looking at the big picture, one thing that chefs do, right? Another aspect, mindset-wise, of cook versus chef is, immediate gratification. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, cooks have to produce on the fly, à la minute. It's important. We need that. And there's instant gratification, especially, ask anyone that's worked in a kitchen or just in hospitality in general. It's a busy night. You're on top of it. You're on fire. You're cranking it out and you are just blazing through. At the end of the night, you're drinking your beer, whatever it is, you're buzzing because it's like a dopamine hit. Like you wouldn't believe. It's like the runner's high times 10. And that's why I couldn't go to sleep till like 2, 3 in the morning. And because I'd just be so buzzed. Now that's cool. That's important in so many ways, but from a mindset point, for someone who definitely wants to elevate their lives, that could be problematic because we're not looking big picture, right? It's like it could be, just impulsive buying instead of saving for something. It could be jumping from relationship to relationship instead of wondering like, who am I and what do I really need? Old patterns, old ways of thinking. And so we lose that connection because we're just in that, and especially in this society now with, again, social media or whatever it is, that we just get those instant hits as opposed to stepping back and seeing what is it that I really want. The last thing, blaming external circumstances. This is anyone. This is not just cooks. A poor cook, and I say poor in terms of mindset, is someone who blames the equipment, the flame, all the products, and blah, blah, blah. Now, yes, they may have valid concerns at times because the chef's job is to make sure they have the resources and they have the training, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's up to the cook to also problem solve and to take ownership for what they're doing. And I've worked with a ton of cooks, oh my gosh, who did not do that. It was so much easier just to chirp and bitch. And how often do we do that in our lives? We don't take responsibility. As soon as we absolve ourselves of responsibility, we get into victim mode. Because like, why me? Why me? People who take charge of their lives, of their results, they're the ones who are going to step up. But if you're constantly caught in this, it's their person, if only they did this, if they only showed up like this, that you're giving away your power. And you're not going to go anywhere doing that. Now, coming at it from a chef's mindset, now we can go on forever with this because there's so many leadership qualities that we can talk about. But if we're talking big concept, just imagine the way that a chef would create a menu, the way that you can create your life, the way that you can design your life. Looking at what values, what's your vision, what are your hopes and aspirations? How do these line up? And instead of, boxing yourself in, think, what does success look like for me? Success looks differently for everyone, but you get to create your 5-course menu. You get to create what you consume, how you consume it, what you're putting into your body, what are you reading, what are you listening to, who are you hanging out with. You get to decide that. Another thing that chefs do is to challenge themselves, to be creative, to innovate. There's so many things I've done that just flopped, but I learned from them. And so I think a lot of chefs put themselves out there because they know that they can fail forward. And a lot of people pull themselves back because they don't want to look foolish or they're afraid of failure. Some are afraid of succeeding. And so again, how can you take this into your day, into your life? What is it that you want to take a chance on? Is there something that there's, no risk, no reward. And so just how creative, I mean, I talk a lot about creativity as a coach and et cetera. How can you create something for yourself, for others that wasn't there before? It could be a career change. It could be how you set up your space. It could be how you perceive your day. It could be, it could be artistic. It could be anything, but you got to be creative and innovative if you want to step up to the next level. And in the same vein, you can experiment and play. Chefs love to play, and they love to find, maybe new or obscure ingredients. And you scour the earth for something, some leaf from this little creek that only exists in, July 15th to July 22nd. And, you have to fight a wombat to get to it. They'll do that to play around. And so where in your life can you experiment and play around with things? How can you try maybe new routines, trying a new way of doing this or that, new way of problem solving? Just play and experiment. Another area is decision making. For a cook, they do have to make decisions, of course, like this, do I use this? And when can I? More like micro decisions, because the bigger decisions are outside of them. And for some, that's okay. They like to kind of not be responsible for the big stuff. That's, again, why I said a lot of cooks don't want to be chefs, because you have to make powerful and unpopular decisions. And so if you're okay with that in your life, cool beans, all the power to you. But if you're someone that wants to step into an elevated life, I know I use that word a lot, but we're just going with it. What can I say? Then you're going to want to step into making the uncomfortable decisions, the powerful decisions, the ones that may be unpopular, the ones that may take you out of your comfort zone, that might scare you a little bit, but are going to move the needle for you. And that's what chefs do. That's what leaders do, is they make decisions. They make firm decisions, powerful decisions, strong decisions, and even if it's not the most popular, because the bigger decision it is, you cannot please everyone. That's the whole thing. But you are in charge of your life. So you're going to have to make decisions, like maybe you have to cut ties with certain people, certain things. You may have to move into doing this. You may have, whatever it is, to step into the bigger, highest version of yourself, you're going to have to make big decisions. Adaptability is another one too. I mean, great chefs are always adapting, whatever it is, whether it's a trend or whether they're looking at, what's going on with the market, what's going on with clientele, the way that, dining or whatever it is, wherever they're working is trending towards or moving towards, they have to shift and change towards that. Maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe they have to move towards, but the good ones, they're like, okay. And they're a step ahead, and they're ready and willing to make the decisions that's best for the operation and still maintain integrity and, do the things that they do. And for cooks, sometimes they get into those routines and they want to stay in there. Whereas a chef is willing to step out of the usual and to be malleable and to be flexible, because that's where you're allowed to shift. That's where you can shift. That's where creativity and innovation, all that stuff lives, is in being adaptable. So if you want to move the needle in your life, if you want to step into something bigger and higher and better, then you need to be adaptable. You're going to have to switch things up. You're going to have to switch your routines up. You're going to have to look at the bigger picture. All these things tie in together. So adaptability is another one. And if you're not happy with the results that you have right now, if you're not happy with the circumstances, then what just died? My backlight. One of my backlights just died. So if you're listening to this, it doesn't make any difference. But you're watching, I'm almost done. So just pretend it's on, all right? Okay, the last one, because I can go on forever with this, but I'll give you this last one. It's about personal responsibility, about not having to please everyone, because you can't. You can lead well, or you can try to be liked. You can't do both at the same time. That's it. And so there's a lot of cooks who are just happy to be in their lane, to be liked by everyone, to just do their thing, just kind of not play small, but not play big, if you know what I'm saying. Leaders don't have that ability. They can't afford, they don't have that luxury, let's say. And any leader that I've seen that's tried to be liked and to try to play it safe, they're not great leaders, period. And it shows. And so for you to step into the higher version of yourself, to step into greatness, to step into better results in whatever it is you do, however you define success, It's understanding that you are in charge and you cannot please everyone. And this is adaptability. This is decision making. This is creativity. This is innovate. It's all those things I talked about and more. Because you are responsible at the end of the day for your life, for your results. And so if you can get past and move through the idea that you are here to please everyone, then you're gonna skyrocket. And that has taken me a long time to learn. Took me a long time then, and even now doing what I do now, I've had to sidestep that. And anytime I step into making those powerful decisions, into being adaptable, into standing into my own space and being who I'm meant to be, and saying no to the people and situations that I have to say no to, that I need to say no to, because I know my integrity would be I'd be out of alignment with my integrity, that's when things improve. And so for you, if you want to elevate, please don't get into people pleasing. Take full responsibility for your life, for your situation. You may be a victim, or you might be victimized, but you're not a victim. There might be certain circumstances that you were brought into, understood. But it's how you respond to that. That's the great challenge. That's where the great leap becomes. That's where the great leadership is, in how you respond. And you respond in a way that challenges yourself to grow. And great leaders, great chefs, they do that. They push the envelope. They don't make excuses. And they keep striving regardless of the circumstances or conditions that they're in. And I invite that for you to do that as well. So that's what I got. Deadlight and all. All right, if that was useful in any way, even like half a sentence was useful to you, please share, comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. All that stuff. It would be really handy. It would be lovely. I'd love to push this out to more people, more than just like my mom, who I love dearly, and like 5 other people who are just my core group. Thank you so much for always being here. But let's expand that. I need your help. Let's push the boundaries. Let's get more people involved so that we can help more people. Yeah, share this with anyone who you think might need this, who might be too much in the cook's mentality. Also, check out the archives. I got lots going in there. Also, check out You Are Gumbo. We're doing lots there. And if you need any coaching support in terms of creativity, all the things I talked about, these are the things I help people with through the lens of creativity, because everything that you're doing is creation. It's creating, it's innovating, and you can do that in all parts of your life to create the best life that you can make. So check out my website. And until then, kitchen's closed. Get lost.